I'd like to call the meeting to order. If you'd all stand and join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good morning, Mr. Chair.
Good morning.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
First item of business, I would look for an approval of the county board minutes.
Second.
Discussion. Hearing none, those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes. Tabitha, do we have any additions or deletions to the agenda?
Not at this time.
I would like to tentatively make one if Land Services gets here earlier than later, because there's a couple of board members that may want to leave a little early due to a couple of other meetings that they've got. We would put Land Services and just move them up at that point in time, if we could.
I'll make a motion to approve with that.
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none, those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes. Our next item of business, and our friends are here today, is Rich Prairie Sewer and Water. And gentlemen, if you would like to grab a chair right over here, please. Right here. Good enough with me. Good morning.
Good morning, gentlemen.
If you'd be so kind as to introduce yourself and carry on.
Okay, I'm Chuck Storkamp, Rich Prairie Sewer and Water, and Herb Brashofsky. And we're just here for our annual look at or review, and I believe you all got some information on it. And if there's any questions that you have, we'd be more than happy to answer. We'll give you a few updates that are going right now. One of them, we're working with the county on that road going south out of Piers, and that sounds like that's going pretty good. We had to work together because our pressure pipe going out to our pond system is buried in the roadway there, or the right-of-way. But the way it sounds, everything's going smooth there.
So the county was able to find that pipe, or you guys were able to find that
We
pipe?
dug down and
We
found it.
did periodic places. We went down and located it, and they GPSed it, marked it, so everything is located now, so.
So did it have to get moved?
No.
No.
Oh, did it?
We were
Okay.
fortunate.
Yeah, it was close, but
Okay.
you know,
Beautiful.
we were able to work around it, and
And now for eternity, we know where it is.
right.
Okay.
And one other thing that's come up is our secretary is retiring at the end of the year here. So we're going to try something different. Rather than try and find a part-time secretary with the knowledge and expertise, we're going to contract with the city of Piers for our billing, just the billing. And we're thinking we can save some money, and they're sending bills out every month, and we're still working on how everything is going to work out. It should be all separated, and talked it over with attorneys and different things like that. So we're just in the process of that. Hopefully everything will go smooth there. And it's something new, but I think we can save quite a bit of money by combining. So I don't know if you heard any on that at all, or what is your thought on that, Mike?
Oh, I think that's a good idea. Like you say, it's not a full-time job either way, and it works with the city, and
Right,
if you can make it work, I think that's great.
okay.
Yeah, and there's some substantial savings. We can probably save about half on our costs, so. Financially, we're sitting pretty good. We got about $1.5 million in reserve right now. We do have a couple of big projects coming up. One is the North End project, and I think you are aware that you moved that out to 2021. Is that right? The North End appears?
Yeah, I don't know if it's 20 or 21. I know it keeps moving a little bit, but you're
Well-
talking about doing it on 39, right?
Yes.
Yep, and a sewer project. And your project will be done like a year before we tar that one, right?
Well, we'll be working in conjunction with you at the same time.
Okay, because weren't we going to tar 39, do that in like, we're doing it in 19, are we not? Aren't we coming up to the city?
Up to the city limits, and
We're
then
gonna do
through
the
the city,
rest.
it's going to be moved
And then we'll do
out,
the rest
yeah.
later, yep.
Because of the trail, and I don't know what all is involved in there, something with the city, but also we got our water tower, we need to refurbish that, so we'll probably do that in 2020.
Sounds good.
So we're looking at about $400,000 for that, and probably about $6 for the North End project, so.
That's where those reserves come in really handy, don't they?
Yes.
Right, we're hoping to
Bet.
cash flow them both. And
Yeah, we're hoping we don't have to come and talk to you.
That's wonderful. That's truly wonderful.
Well, to me, it's always nice when you look ahead at projects and
Yeah.
you charge enough money to get those projects done down the road. We try to do the same thing so that when they do come up, it's not like we got to try to find this money somewhere. So that's good planning on your part. Thank you.
And we're going to be working with the city of Piers coming up within the next year. They're going to look at their 5 or 10-year plan too, because we always try to work with them. So when they redo a street, we redo the infrastructure underneath.
You bet.
So we are trying to build up for that too. Sometimes that can be quite a bit too.
Excellent. Gentlemen, do you have any questions?
Again, I just see that your net position is a lot better for 2017 and 16, so that's a good thing to know.
Yeah, we're always trying to raise on that end. When we see it going the other direction, well, then we
Right,
gotta look at something.
It's good.
Absolutely. Okay, I don't know, do we need to have a motion to accept it? I don't think so. It's just information from both of you, and I very much appreciate that. I know you come to see us at least once a year, sometimes twice a year, maybe even, huh?
Once a year.
once a
You can
year.
come twice if you want to. We like seeing you, we really do. It comes so fast, it seems like it's
Right,
twice
it
a year,
seems
but
like-
once a year is good.
Commissioner Jelinski, if we'd have cookies or something like
That's
that.
right. Maybe then they would entice them to come back a little more often. Gentlemen, thank you very, very kindly. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next item is the Sullivan Lake Improvement District.
Boy, you're moving along quicker than I thought here.
We are. Good morning.
Good morning. I'm John Korsman, representing the Sullivan Lid, and I guess also representing probably some of Sullivan Lake, the association. Little overview. This year, the curly leaf was down in the early spring, which was advantageous to us. And it looks like the native weeds were very good this year, so they were up, in my opinion, from previous years. And I'd like to first thank you for the money that was given to Sullivan Lake for their ambassador program, where we had people at the landings. That works out very well. They report to the association at least twice a year to the whole organization. And it looked like things were going well. It appears we may have more boats coming in that have been to 1 or 2 lakes earlier, so we have the potential of spread of invasive species. But they do check all the trailers going in and out, so we're trying to make that clear that they need to do that to help us out, that we don't want, invasive species brought into our lake.
So, John, how often do you have people at the landing?
It's usually on the weekends,
Okay.
and they cover the whole weekend. And 3-day weekends are there all 3 days. So
Very
it's
good.
helpful at the busy times.
Very good. Never hurts to have a reminder, I'm sure.
Right. And it's gone pretty well for them. They said once in a while, people say, don't touch my boat, don't do this, you can't do that. They have really no enforcement other they can do, explain to them what they're doing. And it's worked out. There hasn't been, to my knowledge, any calls for additional backup or support, so it is working out okay.
Sure.
So thanks for those funds. To put it mildly, we were a little dismayed, though, that we, as the LID, did not get any money. After we submitted information, it was determined that the chemicals, or if you were going to, treating for curly leaf pondweed, there would not be money allocated last year, or this year, I should say, for that. And that was kind of a surprise or shock to us. Kind of expected something. But, the ground rules were submit your information. Then afterwards, we kind of found out that, no, they wouldn't give money to that chemical application. I know that's their choice, but it would be nice to know up front so we know what we're dealing with. Especially this year, because we had I think it was a 42% increase in the chemical. So when we had planned on $64 a gallon, it came up to $81 a gallon.
Okay.
Now, it put us short based on all our projections and funding that we had. We did okay this year because the curly leaf did not come up to the extent it has in the past. They threw the rakes before the chemical was added, so we did not treat nearly the amount that we had in past years. And it looks like that may be okay this year. We will do a lakes or a curly leaf pondweed survey early next year before we treat to see what it looks like, to see what we can treat. So that's just a little temperament on, it'd be nice to know the ground rules before we start into those applications. We also have 2 people that have been qualified to watch for invasive species. They can identify them. If there's any questions, they can send the samples in and have them analyzed. I think it's by the DNR, so that we know what we're dealing with. So far, there hasn't been anything else found. We only know of curly leaf. I've also then brought up for the coming year what we have for projections for our budget. So we're going to start out probably with a little more money than we had the year before, only because we treated far less acreage for curly leaf. But the bottom line out of this is, based on that information right now, we're requesting that the assessment be $40 per riparian owner. That will make us solvent, for this year. That $40 may have to change next year based on what kind of, grants we can get, but it may jump quite a bit because of the cost of the chemical. So that's the present day asking that you guys agree with us on $40. Are there any questions?
Mr. Chair,
Yes?
what were the assessments for 18?
40. Yep.
And that grant money from Morrison County, right now, it's not being, you're not able to use it for killing weeds. It's more for surveys and for putting people on the ramps and signage and stuff, but
Correct.
we have considered opening up the requirements and adding that, but as of now, it's not allowed to be used for that.
Okay, and so we will have to do another survey early next spring, so we will also put in, probably besides the ambassador program, we will then request for the survey again to know exactly what the curly leaf is doing in the lake and what we have to apply the chemical to. So I appreciate that feedback, and that way, see, instead of just asking for the money and in what we're doing, we can slot exactly what we're doing so and we don't have a miscommunication.
You used to get grant funding from the state, which they took that away from you guys, right?
Correct.
And that's probably why the rules were written the way they were in our, in the county. But as for now, you're not allowed to use it for the killing of the weeds or
Right.
the invasives.
And it would be nice to have a plan somewhere. And I think it should be at the state level, because all our lakes are subject to it. But, everybody's got their opinions, and there's been arguments for many years, long as I've been here, on how that should be done. But they're finding more and more of these things occurring in more and more lakes, and it's only a matter of time because all these boats do visit the lakes in Minnesota.
John, I'm pretty confident that you have an annual meeting, and my question, I guess, is at the annual meeting, I'm anticipating the $40 has been discussed, whether it's $40, $30, $50, $100, whatever, but it's been discussed, and that I'm anticipating that you look to the future during your annual meeting and suggested that we may have to increase that. My question is, what kind of feedback have you gotten so far, if you've gotten any, if it's even been talked about, of increasing sooner than later?
It has been. It's brought up many times. We have with the association, a spring meeting and a fall large. They meet every month.
Yep.
But most members show up then. It was decided to keep it at $40 because this year our gambling was doing very well and could supplement us and stepped in with money far beyond what we're normally getting. So we kind of know our state right now that we're in, but it was stated that if gambling goes down or goes away, then we probably have to double it or even more. So the members are well aware of that. The feeling was, we are not the only ones using the lake, so that gambling money comes in from the general area. So we'd like to use those funds to the lake so that it's more than just the homeowners supporting the lake. So your point is well taken, and yes, it was addressed.
So gambling funds are not addressed in your budget at all, though, are they?
No, because we're two separate entities,
Oh,
and we
excuse me.
have to
It's the association.
request from them what we project we're going to need, and if their budget will take it.
So it's the association and the Lake Improvement District. I got to get myself
Correct.
wrapped around that.
That's right.
And the association has gambling funds.
That's correct.
And perhaps if you were to ask, or have in the past, asked the association for funds, they perhaps have then given them to the lid.
That's right.
Okay.
So once we stated we were flat-footed on any kind of grant money coming in,
Sit here.
in here you see Lake Sullivan has stepped up to giving us 12 grand next year.
I'm looking right at it. Thank you.
And I didn't walk through everything. I'm not sure you
That's
wanted
okay.
me to go
Yep.
through everything. But they stepped up to 12 grand, which has been a long time since we've seen that money. But they happen to have it this year because the gambling funds allowed it.
Very good.
Yep.
Thank you. That answered that for me. Gentlemen, anything further? Questions?
Yeah, John, Mr. Chair, on your association, you got 12,000, but based on, that's including the $40 per assessment for
No.
the 2019, you're 22.3,
No.
is that correct?
Sullivan Lake gave us 12,000.
Right.
The next one under that is our request for $40 in 2019 is
Yep.
at 10,000.
So my point is that based on moving forward, obviously the 12,000 is not in the 2020 and 21 budget.
That's correct.
But you're still looking at a shortfall in 2021 of 30-some thousand, am I right?
That's correct.
So you'll need to find some money someplace if continuing only at the $40.
That's right.
Plus, you're hoping you get some from the association, right?
Yes, based on what we're seeing right now, we can request funds from the association next spring. We vote on that, and it appears those dollars will be there. Now, whether it'll be back at 8,000 or will they go to 14?
Right.
We don't have the answer to that, but that will be looked at early in the spring of what they
But
have.
moving forward, definitely in 2021, you're going to need more than 14,000 from Lake Association.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yes, right.
And Mr. Chair, everything's presented in the budget, so that's your max ability,
Right.
you're maxed out at the 12, but we appreciate everything included in the budget so we know what's happening when
Right.
you approve.
That's why
that.
we leave them blank, because no money's guaranteed. We never put in, anything from Morrison or from the state, because you don't know what's going to happen the following years. This would be hopefully our worst-case scenario.
Okay.
I'd make a motion to approve that.
I'll second.
Mr. Chair, it's for the budget and then the per riparian property owner
Okay, yeah.
charge.
That'd be still one
So
motion.
one motion is
Yep.
fine
Yep.
with that,
So
yes.
yeah, to include the riparian and the assessment.
And who seconded it?
I did.
And you'll second that
Yep.
language? Discussion? Hearing none, gentlemen, this is a roll call vote. Commissioner Blaine?
Aye.
Lemire?
Aye.
Wilson?
Aye.
Wincher?
Aye.
And myself is an aye vote. John, thank you very kindly. That motion passes. I appreciate you stopping by with the information and all your answers, too. I very much appreciate that.
Hopefully, we can stay on the same page.
Absolutely.
And I guess one thing I forgot, Deb Lowe said she would work with us on doing our update of our water plan, and that started a bit. She visited with the Lake Association, I think, 2 months ago. And so we're going to work on that this year also, so we update, because presently, we only can treat curly leaf, but we know there's a lot of other things coming, so it needs to be updated with all invasive species.
Language, okay.
So-
Sure. And Deb is in the audience, and she's shaking her head to say, yes, you have talked to her, so that's good.
I'm correct, huh?
Excellent.
Appreciate
John,
your
again,
time.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
Our next item of business is the sheriff's report. Morning, Sheriff.
I have a newsletter that I recently just emailed everybody. But here's a hard copy if you just want to take one, pass it down. Thank you. And the news media's been served too. Not that it's an official service, but.
Absolutely. Morning, Scott.
Morning, sir. So we started something different. It's a newsletter, and really it's just, the final touches were actually added probably by 5:30 this morning, so that's why it's coming to you a little late. I apologize on that, but we thought it's a good way to be able to communicate what's going on with the sheriff's office, and we can also communicate with our own staff what's being presented to the board. So it's something new. I'm not going to get upset if you tell me there's work that needs to get done, because I know there's work or better work that could be done. So just let me know your feedback after everybody gets a chance to actually review it. And like I said, we can certainly try to improve things.
So today's plan, Sheriff, is this is a monthly newsletter? This is every 6 months? This is a yearly? Or do you not have that planned out yet?
So
And that's okay.
It's a great question, Mr. Chair. I'd like I guess my goal is at some point for this to be monthly. But I can tell you right now, even if we strive just to get quarterly, I'd be happy with it.
Yep.
Again, it's just a work in progress, and I'm guessing, the more work we put into this, the more smooth it'll be, so.
I like it. Thank you.
And if you will, I'll try and, we can kind of keep the monthly report on, but I just kind of want to revert to this because this really highlights things.
Sure.
I know it's your first chance to really look at this, so I apologize, but.
So if I may, Mr. Chair, again, I know this is how would you distribute this here if the newsletter, is it put it in the record or as a flyer, or how would you do this? Or if you haven't thought about that, that's fine too.
I think in the future, I'd like to just hit just one button, and the distro would go to the county commissioners, entire staff, and media, and they could utilize, whatever they want out of it. I think that would be the easiest, then we're not really doubling up our work like
Hitting
I'm
that
doing
button
today.
sounds pretty easy, so.
Kind of like hitting the button myself.
Yeah.
And some of these, it's, we can talk numbers, but really it's putting the numbers into what do the numbers actually mean? And I know we do our best and try to describe that at our monthly meetings, but then it's taking the same message and giving it to our entire staff, so. Obviously, this might be a little bit tough. So if we put the county, if we do the report and just scroll down and just keep going, we'll start right there. The first, one more page up, please. So when we're looking at the numbers here, I actually put the numbers in a paragraph format on our newsletter. So if we look at our newsletter, we had 992 total complaints. 134 of those were classified as criminal complaints, and 858 were classified as non-criminal complaints. And again, we talked about what does criminal complaint mean, what does non-criminal complaint mean. So criminal complaint would be anything that can be prosecuted, any charges prosecuted through our county attorney's office. Example may be burglaries, theft complaints, assaults, things of that nature. Our non-criminal complaints, that's including all our traffic citations, as well as public assists, maybe accidents that we respond to out in the county, fire and medical calls for service, animal complaints, everything like that would fall under non-criminal complaints. Moving down to the next paragraph on the first page, we had 198 traffic citations. So this is in your second paragraph. Out of those, 97 were verbal warnings, 40 of those were speeding citations, and 37 were written warnings. Now if we scroll down to where the jail information is, right there. So in the newsletter, I stated that we stay busy in the jail. We're averaging 44 inmates for the month of August. We boarded inmates from Itasca and Stearns County. Our total population, including the inmates that were boarded, we averaged 60 inmates. The number of inmates from other counties that were boarding was 39, and the revenue that we took in was $27,940. You can see in the newsletter, we had a chaplaincy fundraiser. I'm trying to highlight like different things that took place that I feel that should be brought to you guys' attention. One of them was a motorcycle fatality. In this case, we did a news release on it. It occurred on Partridge Road, south of 113th Street. And they were actually heading, they were in a curve and a deer jumped out. And they hit the deer, and both the driver and the passenger were both airlifted to separate hospitals. And unfortunately, the driver died because of his injuries. So it's unfortunate, but it's one of those highlights that I want to make sure everyone's aware of, so we point it out in our newsletter. We had a drone presentation. This was Deputy Heffron and I. We talked about this last month, about how the Swanville Lions, the Swanville Legion, the Swanville VFW donated $15,000, and the Swanville Lions wanted us to do a presentation and actually see the drone, so we actually went out there and did a presentation for them. I highlight the medication disposal unit, and the only reason I'm doing that is because it used to be Morrison County, Randall, Little Falls, and Piers. Now it's actually Morrison County Sheriff's Office, Motley City Hall, Little Falls Police Department, and Piers City Hall. So the change is Randall, the Randall medication disposal unit, we took it out of Randall and we put it in Motley. And just because the rules state that there actually has to be an active police department there. So
Mr. Sheriff, how well are these utilized?
they're actually utilized quite a bit. I don't have a breakdown or a number for you, I apologize, but we do have like a big, like a Rubbermaid tub. And every so often, when it's full, we'll have to deliver it and get rid of it in a legal fashion and then actually put it back. So I don't know, I guess sometimes it takes 6 months to fill, sometimes it could be 3 months to fill, so.
Sheriff, if you don't mind me asking again, and I'm sure probably I may have or somebody else did, what do you do with that once it is filled? When you said you get rid of it in a legal fashion, what happens?
So we bring it to Alexandria, and they have a disposal unit there where we have to go, bring everything, they have to check it in, they check the weight, and then we have to turn everything over to them and it gets disposed of.
Okay, very good, thank you. I think it's burnt.
Yep, they actually burn it, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Our drug investigations, we've been busy. The first paragraph under drug investigations in your newsletter, I refer to the Morrison County Records Management System because, as you're aware, the Central Minnesota Violent Offender Task Force now has their own data system. So just from the county stuff, we had 5 methamphetamine-controlled substance cases, 4 possession of marijuana, 1 agency assist, and 1 controlled search warrant case. Now, if you look at the Central Minnesota Violent Offender Task Force, the second paragraph under drug investigations, basically highlighting that they completed their federal case. So we had a lot of hours spent in that St. Cloud area, which we talked about in previous months. A lot of this activity going on in St. Cloud was crossing our border into Morrison and other counties. They had 16 search warrants that they actually executed on August 29th. And out of those 16 search warrants, our task force investigator assigned from Morrison County assisted on 3 of those warrants. The search warrants were executed in the St. Cloud, St. Joe, and Sauk Rapids area. We're going to skip the Heidi Austin case because I saved that to the back kind of as a case highlight. And we'll go to your second page, which would be on the back. So this was kind of a unique case. On your second page, where the second paragraph, where it starts off, additionally, the Central Minnesota Violent Offender Task Force arrested Jamie Adams. So this is a gal who was arrested. She was arrested on an outstanding warrant, and the Central Minnesota Violent Offender Task Force made the arrest. Well, there's video in the squad car, and she's in the back seat, and the deputies actually reviewed the video. It takes a while to download and for everything to come back up where they can review it. Well, they actually located her, and she was removing some items and putting them, look like she was disclosing them or actually hiding them in her, let's say she was concealing them under her clothing. Well, after further review, we noticed that, hey, something's going on here. We need to lock her cell down. We need to figure out what's going on. Well, there was a baggie of suspected methamphetamine that was actually found in her jail cell. So we found the one baggie, but we could see that there was 2 baggies involved. So at the end of the day, we only could find the one. We knew that she was confined to that one area. So we did a search warrant for a body, for basically an X-ray done on her body. She was brought to St. Cloud Hospital, and we later recovered 1 more ounce of methamphetamine. So obviously, people are trying to get drugs and illegal narcotics up in our jail, and I'm proud of our staff. I'm proud of everybody involved because they noticed what was going on by watching this video and then determined that, hey, we need to confine her, we need to find this product, we need to look at this and investigate this matter. It does take some time for our jail video to download, so that's why this person was already in jail, and then they learned later on from the video that this was going on. So, any questions about that at all?
Good job.
So was the video was of her in her cell?
Nope. So the video was after she was arrested in the city of Royalton. She was placed in a squad car in the back seat. We actually have
Squad car video.
Yep, we actually have a squad car recorder in our back seat now that records the inmate. Sometimes they punch windows out. In this case, it saved us because I don't know what would have happened. Let's say this baggie where the suspected methamphetamine was in bursted. Are we going to have an immediate overdose in our jail? And then, of course, our jail is going to be liable. So at the end of the day, this definitely saved us, and it saved us from making sure that these drugs didn't spread in our facility as well.
Mr. Chair, it's a good example of deputies paying attention to the detail and paying attention throughout the entire interaction, and that's commendable. It's good.
So
What made the deputy watch the video if she didn't do anything, like break the windows or anything?
Well, there was some action going on in the back seat where it was like, hey, what's going on back there? You need to sit still.
Observation.
So yeah, he's just observing, those sudden movements and just things weren't making sense. So.
Good job.
Our drug task force investigator also did a presentation on the Knights of Columbus that occurred at Cabin Fever in Little Falls. Approximately 50 members were in attendance. Just a quick highlight on our Morrison County K-9. As everyone knows, we're active now with our 2 K-9s. We assisted Todd County, and we got asked to assist them because a violent assault suspect, he was wanted, he assaulted his girlfriend, and then he took off. Well, then Todd County got a second call that the same subject tried going back to the residence and tried breaking in. And again, he fled on foot. So there was over an hour of time that lapsed over before our deputy actually arrived on scene. And once the deputy arrived on scene, Deputy Sherping, he utilized his K-9 Rocky, and he ended up going through some heavy vegetation and the swamp where he was up to water up to his waist. And long story short, the Rocky ended up finding the suspect, apprehended the suspect, and it was a good ending, a good finish. The dog found the suspect, and subject was turned over to Todd County deputies. So just another example how good these canines work.
And again, Mr. Chair, I'm assuming now, like Todd County, some counties around us do not have the K-9. Is that true?
That is true.
Okay. Well, I think it's great that you work across lines.
Jail activity, Scott, if you want to talk a little bit about this, the ICLD program. It's an online certification course that's hosted through the Minnesota Sheriff's Association. So we want to point out that Scott McKissick, Sergeant Kerry Herman, and Officer Doug Rocco are the only 3 at this point that have completed all 4 phases. And Scott, if you want to talk a little bit about the program.
The program's set up through the State Sheriff's Association and incredible leadership development school, college. Takes about, we're looking at 160 hours. of volunteer time of sitting, listening to a computer, 8 books to read. So it's a commitment on staff. I allow staff to do it on midnight shifts at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning when it's quiet, there's nothing going on, to grab the computer and booking and watch a 20-minute video. I currently got myself, Carrie, and Doug are done, and there's 6 other staff currently working on it. And it's self-paced, so it's taken some people 2 months to complete the whole course, and it's going to take some 6, 7 months to do it. So nobody's in a rush to do it. So it's good learning. We've learned a lot through it, and there's good information.
There's just a lot of topics that are involved on this online program that you just don't necessarily teach in law enforcement. An example is just ethics and morals. You can see this segment, it gives examples, and it's not pinpointing anybody, it's just you review it and then you hopefully retain some of that knowledge, and it helps you in the future. So yeah, proud of all the staff that have completed this.
And Sheriff, I'm looking at the bottom of that paragraph, Scott, both of you. Morrison County is fortunate to have Sourcewell, formerly NJPA, is covering the tuition cost for that?
That's correct, Mr.
Pretty
Chair.
cool deal.
So what happened was, initially when this program got pushed off to us, I was receiving a bill for tuition, and I think it was right around $3,000.
Yep.
And basically, we worked with NJPA, and we said, hey, this is something that we can see our entire region benefiting from. So would you guys be willing to pay the tuition costs so all the counties could benefit? And they agreed to do so. So we didn't pay the tuition. We waited an entire year, and then we just got it up and running, and now everything's paid for. The only cost that comes out of our pocket is the cost for the books. But the online tuition fees are waived.
Outstanding. Good job.
We'll just move on to the case highlights, and then I'm going to talk about a couple more things after that. So the case highlight will be on the back page. This is suspect Heidi Austin. So members of our Central Minnesota Violent Offender Task Force received information about Heidi Austin, who's from the Royalton area, that she was distributing methamphetamine. So this is a case where they were proactive. They actually went out to the residence that she was allegedly staying at. They started conducting some surveillance, and lo and behold, here comes a vehicle near the property. And she was a passenger in the vehicle, so one of our unmarked squads actually did a follow, and long story short, there was an object that was thrown from the vehicle. We followed up on it, and we later found out it was 1 pound of suspected methamphetamine. So we've talked about this in the past. We're seeing the quantities increasing, and this is a case where we're not dealing with grams anymore, not even an ounce, we're dealing with a pound. So they did a follow-up, they did a search warrant on the vehicle, and approximately 1/4 pound of additional methamphetamine was located in the vehicle. We also did a search warrant on the residence itself, and we located thousands of dollars of stolen tools. So we talked about before, drugs, burglaries, break-ins, thefts, they kind of go hand to hand. And this is another case where we're proud of all the investigators involved in this, and this is a good case where all the stolen merchandise was given back to the owner, and the owner was happy. The stolen property owner was from Benton County, so luckily we caught it in time before these tools were sold off or ended up going to a pawn shop. So it turned out to be a good case, and to me, I just put it out as our case highlight because we're talking a large amount of methamphetamine. And now our staff is busy doing the follow-up on that because, of course, we want to know all the fingers that went into this, who's all involved, and plenty of follow-up to do.
Sheriff, in round numbers, what's a pound and a quarter of methamphetamine going for these days?
Boy, you got me. I'd almost have to find somebody that could give me a better answer than I could. I could tell you that if they break it into grams, it could be anywhere from $100 to $125 per gram. But of course, with the larger substance, it's usually a cheaper rate than that.
Sure,
So-
absolutely. Thank you.
And if I may, Mr. Chair, again, I know you're doing an investigation, but obviously this was made somewhere, this meth.
Correct.
However they do it, whatever. So I'm assuming that's your next follow-up to see where this is being processed.
Yeah, there's a lot of, obviously, we're going to go after everything and then investigate this thing to its entirety. So every single player that's involved, hopefully, we can take down. The only other thing I wanted to add was the Randall. I just want to give everyone a heads up. The Randall city contract that we're doing is up for renewal. And I think we talked about this last time. They wanted a 2-year renewal. We declined that, and we told them that we would do the 1-year renewal. So the language is the same. The only thing we really changed is the dates. So now it's going to be effective January 1, 2019 to December 31st. And we actually put the new dates in and did sign it. So.
Mr. Chair, I just have to comment, well done on the newsletter. You know, I think it's important for the sheriff's office especially to be very public-facing in communication, and Sean does a great job with that. And a strategic imperative that we talked about during our planning session was to work on communication both internally and externally. So I think, you know, certainly I can learn a lot from Sean's example in terms of communicating out, and so I appreciate that and working together to try to help, because it takes a lot. It's hard to take staff time sometimes to regularly put stuff like this together. So thank you for doing that. I think it's very important for your constituents to be able to see this information and get the word out there. So
I'll
good job.
definitely pass it on to our staff because they did all the work. All I did was type. Really, for me to try and put this together, it would be awful. So
but
I'll
good job.
pass it on.
Nice.
Thank you, Sheriff.
I think that's all I have. Thank you. That's
Scott, Sheriff, thank you very kindly for coming. I appreciate it.
Thank
Good
you.
job.
Thank you.
Good job. Brings us to our next item. Our next item is going to be the Social Services Report, which I believe might just include the sheriff also.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, Commissioners.
Good morning.
Morning, Brad. So the first thing that I have on your agenda, yes, is a presentation along with Sean to talk about the jail social work position. And as you might recall, I think we talked about this about 3 weeks ago at a planning session. So the design team has been hard at work talking about what this position may look like and the services that it can provide to the jail. Penny, along with the design team, put together a PowerPoint presentation that is in your packet. And at the end, I'm going to be requesting the ability to fill this position, as I think the design team is ready to move forward on this. So I'll just quickly go through, or maybe I'll have Penny go through the PowerPoint since she worked so hard at this. So
just to start out, this is a partnership program throughout our Region 5 Adult Mental Health Initiative. This is not something that we are coming forward to you with just as an individual entity, but something that region-wide we've identified as an area needing support and services. So really, what is this comprehensive reentry program? It is a model of service originally developed by Blue Earth County that really focuses on trying to get services and supports and screening of individuals coming into the jail up front instead of over and over and over again, them just going through the jail without being connected to any services or supports. Again, like I said, this is a regional project that we are looking at with our Adult Mental Health Initiative, collaborating with Aitkin, Cass, Crow Wing, Morrison, Todd, and Wadena. Crow Wing County did do a soft rollout in their jail of this program in June. So really how it works is we would hire a social worker through the social services, and we would locate them in the jail. They would be there in the jail, available to do the screening as individuals are coming in, being booked, screening on mental health and chemical dependency, work with the jail personnel, with MEND, with the current jail programmer to connect the individuals to services and supports once they go out based off the screening that they have. The other component of this project is the technology that the Adult Mental Health Initiative is working on a program that goes across our region that helps us to identify those individuals that are transient coming into our jail in Morrison County, going into Crow Wing County, Todd County, and we know that they go between them. And so how can we support and know that that's happening, and give them services to be connected and not go between the jails so frequently. Really what this boils down to is people being untreated with mental health and chemical dependency in our jails. And that creates that revolving door that they go in the jail because they offended because of some of their mental health, chemical dependency, not treated. Go in, get booked, go to arraignment, get released, go back to using, untreated mental health, again, get arrested, offend, and the cycle just continues because they're not treated. Studies show that about 1 in 5 people in jail have a serious mental illness. And there are about 10 times more people in jail with the mental health and chemical dependency than are in our hospitals or getting treatment as they should be. So this project is really focusing on how can we be front end on our continuum of care to get the help and support and services to these individuals instead of being at the back end and letting that revolving door just keep going around and around and around. Blue Earth County has shown evidence-based results from this project. It's been very statewide known, and they've brought it through and in front of legislatures throughout the last years since they've implemented. This also complements the current jail discharge planning that's happening and would be a strong component of what we're doing, and really fosters the collaboration between different county partnerships. We have corrections sitting on our design team, the jail, social services, all of the different entities and departments that are coming in contact, the courts, county attorney's office, with these individuals, all coming to the table. How can we support and get this project and these people's services to stop that revolving door? The Adult Mental Health Initiative has really identified some very specific outcomes that we're looking for. This is not a project that we're just saying, hey, let's see how this works. We've really identified what is the data we're going to keep, what do we want to see out of this project, and this is a list of them. I don't know that I need to read it to you, but a lot of it attends to exactly how it's going to impact multiple systems, county attorney's office, jail, law enforcement on the streets that are seeing these same people over and over and over again. I know if you talk to any one of the officers out there, they could list you a handful of people that it's revolving around. They're picking them up and going into jail and coming back out. So we have a list there of desired outcomes and data that we will be taking on this project. Your next slide here is, Scott had gotten me some of the information from the 2017, just because we needed to know how much volume we're looking at. How many screenings would we be looking at a social worker conducting every single year? Overall, there were in 2017 about 1,600 bookings. About 1,400 of those were not for just boarding purposes. We would not be implementing this program on people we are just boarding in our jails. This would only be for people who are being booked in. And this just kind of shows you breakdown of per hour what the stats were. So you'll notice kind of that starting at 8 a.m., it's kind of hard to see, but at 8 a.m. is where it kind of starts peaking up. Scott did tell me that 7 p.m. time period, you can see that is our highest number. If you just want to talk a little bit about that, Scott.
That's 90% of our commitments. The judge orders everybody to report to jail at 7 p.m. So when you come to do your sentence, you report at 7. So that's why 7 p.m. is our busiest hour.
So last bit of information, probably one you're most interested about, is the funding for this project. And there's a number of different funding sources that we can use to support this. Targeted case management. Currently, the Adult Mental Health Initiative has received 2 grants, one from DHS to fund this project, as well as one from Sourcewell to fund this project through 2019. Also, health plans will be utilized for some funding. And then the last piece is currently there is legislation that was approved for officer-involved community-based care coordination. This was approved and passed to retro back to March 1, but it's currently still sitting at the federal level with CMS to approve that funding.
So, as you know, the 2019 budgeting work has been put in place. We are expecting $55,000 from Sourcewell. We are actually going to keep that in our budget for 2019 and not request those funds. And we would actually be using fund balance to pay for this position for through the end of this year, which will be at the most about $16,000. It will be dependent upon how quickly we can begin to access some of the health plan revenue and TCM revenue. But also, it will take a period of time before this position is filled and all of the other chairs that might be filled in the meantime. So, but we do certainly have funding to support the full-time position for 2019, and we'll continue to evaluate about how the funding streams come in. So, but I just wanted to give you some information on what that might mean for this year. Because of the speed with which the design team has worked through this process, we didn't anticipate that we would be hiring it yet this year, so we would just wanted to leave the money in for our 2019 budgeting process.
So ultimately, we're not hiring anybody until 19.
Nope, we would actually post the position if the board approves that and get them trained and started as soon as possible. But we know that filling those chairs, we may not actually even see a cost yet this year.
Gotcha.
But we may, and if we do, we would use fund balance to pay for that position.
Gentlemen, I'd look for a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve, Mr. Chair.
I'll second.
Discussion.
If I may, Mr. Chair, Brad, if the funding isn't there for Sourcewell in 2019 or 20, whatever projection, what happens to this position, or where would the funding come from?
That's where we would have to talk with the county board. We'd have to pull the design team together and see what we are recouping in terms of the third-party revenue, whether or not Sourcewell will continue, what our CSP grant and Adult Mental Health Initiative has in terms of resources. But given the emphasis that the state is putting on services to those in the jail, I think we're feeling pretty confident that this position will be funded beyond 2019.
By the state, hopefully.
Hopefully by the state. But we'll continue to bring information to the board and let you know. And of course, as we move forward on the 2020 budgeting process, we'll keep this front and center as well in terms of what we're doing and how it's going.
Mr. Chair?
Yes?
And of course, there's going to be an expense, but is there a way to track the savings that you might incur with, with the added workload that's going to be diminished? Is there a way to track that, or?
Those are some of the outcomes that we will be working on. Part of that savings is not necessarily the ability to track that, because Scott has to staff that jail at certain levels no matter how many people are coming through. But they are certainly going to look at some of those areas that we are saving, which could include some jail costs, as well as one of the things in the Department of Corrections, and maybe Scott can talk a little bit about this, but I believe in 2019, there will be added responsibility in making sure the jail is abiding by some of those DOC standards. So
2019 Department of Corrections is requiring everybody to have a reentry program. Anybody sentenced to 90 days or more in the county jail, 60 days prior to their release date, we have to have a reentry program completed on.
And this will meet that?
This will meet that.
Perfect.
Mr. Chair, I think what Penny presented with the outcomes that group is really going to be concentrating on, who are we serving in that capacity? And, the deputies may not be arresting these people again because they're out, but they'll fill that gap, and they'll have time to spend on other issues and whatnot. But it's incumbent upon the group to really point out and really help emphasize where those impacts are being made in a positive way.
Mr. Chair, I just hope this works out, because this sounds like a fantastic program to help people. Not everybody belongs in jail just because they've done something wrong. A lot of times there's other issues involved, and I hope we can figure that out. And I really like this program.
And I think it's important for corrections, law enforcement, jail staff to work with those individuals who are truly not wanting to be law-abiding, aside from any mental health and chemical dependency issues. And hopefully this will give them more time to really focus on public safety and not so much those mental health or chemical dependency issues that some of those individuals they work with are experiencing. And so I see Nicole, the corrections supervisor, came in as well, and she's a part of the design team, and I think coordinating with them as well, making sure that those individuals that they're working with from a correctional standpoint on probation are abiding by their requirements as well. So
This isn't the first time that this board has heard this conversation, because we've talked about it before. And I just came back from AMC's fall policy meeting. I sit on the Public Safety Committee. It's absolutely unbelievable. This exact conversation took up 2 days. And it was beat up and beat up over and over. Certainly where it started in Blue Earth County. Number of days in jail, Scott just referred to it, 90. And what is it in an attempt to do? And that's quite honestly to make an attempt to keep the same people that are there every day, the revolving door. And I get it. But the amazing part is this isn't just Morrison County. This is absolutely, totally statewide. Probably 40 commissioners were in the Public Safety Committee or that were involved over the past couple of days when I was there. And everyone echoes the same kind of thing. So I'm very much looking forward to this. And hopefully we're going to continue our partnerships with Sourcewell and everybody else to fund these. But, you know, from probation to the jail to the county attorney's office to prison, I just can't help but believe that there won't be a tracking source to show us that this is going to work, because it just makes sense.
Last year's per diem to keep an inmate locked up was $105 a day. For our numbers, the number of inmates we had through last year, we ran the numbers, because we have to do that every year for DOC, it cost us $105 a day.
Very interesting. So we've got a motion. We've got any more discussion? I'd look for those in favor.
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion passes. Thank you all very kindly. It's a very good
thanks to
discussion.
the design team, Nicole, Scott, Penny, Brian, I think was a part of that design team. And we'll continue to use them and work with them as we continue to move forward on this process with inmates in the jail. So,
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
And now we get to continue along with social services. Brad? Playing musical chairs, kind of.
Yes. Good morning. This morning we are going to do a SNAP report, and one of the additions to this SNAP report is we've asked Brian Kapinski to come along from rural Minnesota SEP to talk a little bit about the employment services that he provides M50WP, which also can include individuals on SNAP. So Karen's going to talk a little bit about SNAP first, and I'm going to have Brian talk a little bit about their employment services with populations we serve working in the financial assistance unit. So,
Good morning, Brian.
morning.
Good morning, everyone.
Karen.
Good morning.
Okay, as Brad said, we'll cover SNAP a little bit, Supplemental Nutritional Assistance Program. On the screen, you'll see the gross income limits for households. And then the elderly disabled is at 165 FPG. Now that is a higher income entry level, but they all have to be elderly or disabled, the whole household, in order to get that income amount.
What's
And FPG
elderly?
is federal poverty guideline.
What's
So,
elderly?
60.
I don't know.
Pardon me?
What's elderly?
Be careful what you ask.
I'm
careful, Jeff, be
asking.
careful.
I'm asking.
60 or older.
Okay, very good. Very good. We're there.
I knew that.
Not yet. Okay, how much do households receive in SNAP benefits? Okay, these are the maximum amounts. The income is used, gross income, and of course, if they pay rent Utilities, that's deducted, and then we have a net income test, and it can vary how much they're allowed. It goes on what their expenses are, but this is the maximum amounts. And then we have a chart to show you expedited applications. Now, to be expedited, if someone comes into the agency, they can actually be issued benefits that same day, but their income has to be under $150 and their assets have to be under $100. So if they have $100 in income and pay $200 in rent, we're going to approve their benefits that same day. They can get their card, their benefits will be on their card by 6 o'clock that night.
If I may, isn't Social Security, is that part of income, or yes or no?
Yes, it is.
Isn't like a minimum Social Security, $200 a month or something like that?
Well, it depends.
I mean, I'm just looking at the numbers, they don't add up, but as far as being eligible, so if there's somebody's getting a minimum 200, one person, they wouldn't be eligible for the SNAP program, correct?
Well, it depends on Social Security. Now, if you're looking at someone that's never paid in any credits, they would be eligible for SSI. That amount is $750 a month.
Okay. All right, thank you.
But if they've paid in and they're disabled, it depends how much they've paid in. But if they only get like $500 a month RSDI, which means they've paid in, they would supplement that with the SSI, the $500, and then they'd give them $250 SSI.
So Karen, what happens if you have got somebody that never paid in before and they qualified for, you just said, whatever the
SSI.
SSI,
Supplemental Security Income.
and you used a figure of 7 something or other, and someone who paid in for a period of X, they become disabled, they actually going to get less?
They could. Depends how much they've
That's what I
worked.
said. The numbers just don't.
Those numbers don't add up.
Well, they could on Social Security, but then when you apply and you're disabled, the state will raise you to that $750. You'll
okay.
get the SSI
Okay.
and the RSDI.
Okay. Very
Because
good.
they'll look at both programs.
Very good.
Okay, this is a chart just on the expedited applications. It just tells you in the last year how many applications we had each month. Moving on to Adaprogs, new apps, re-apps, gives you, Adaprogs is when someone's on assistance and they're adding a program, like say they're on SNAP food support and they add cash. New programs, brand new, coming in, never been on before. Reapplications, they're reapplying for benefits. You can see it varies, the applications per month. And then we have a state and county comparison. State of Minnesota and Morrison County, how many cases we have. Morrison County has 1,080 cases. Persons, we have 2,020.
Just SNAP.
Just SNAP. And then it gives you a comparison of 2017. We had 1,112 cases, so we did have more in 17. And then active SNAP cases, it gives you a comparison of the counties close to us. Gives you a comparison of Benton, Crow Wing, Mille Lacs, Todd, and Wadena.
And you can see it's similar circumstance where it seems like the SNAP cases are going down a little bit, and whether that's due to the economy or other things, until you get a larger trend, you're never quite sure what might be happening. So
It may have gone down, but it hasn't really gone down very much.
No, not very much. And then it just, on every dollar spent on SNAP, it generates $1.79 in economic activity. Now, households cannot use their food support benefits for beer, wine, liquor, any non-food item, pet food, soaps, household supplies, vitamins, food that will be eaten in the store, hot foods, but they can buy pizza from Papa Murphy's. They can use their EBT card there because they take it home and bake it.
they can also use EBT cards at farmers markets now. I think all of them in our county accept the EBT card now.
Yes, I believe that's correct.
So you can go get fresh produce as well with your EBT cards.
Is there a way that any of that is tracked? Do our folks on SNAP utilize the farmer's market? Do we know that? Can we even ask? I don't even know if we can.
Well, you really can't ask them if they do, but I know they do because the gal that's the head of the farmer's market, she called us just to make sure we tell people they can do that.
Okay.
They have been using it.
Very good.
Which is good.
Excellent.
Yeah.
And again, dumb question, but if I'm in the store and I buy a six-pack of beer, that card knows it's a six-pack of beer, so it'll reject it, or how does that how it works?
Yep.
Technology.
It
Old
is
man.
amazing. Yeah, old man. Yeah.
And then the out-of-state EBT activity report, I just wanted you to be aware that there is such a report. If it's, every month I print it, and if they're out of state using their card for over 30 days, I send it to the FPI, fraud investigator. We've closed in the last month 4 people. So our report 4 years ago used to be 1 page, now it's about 4 or 5 each month. So they're busy. Any questions?
That's very interesting.
Very interesting. And it once again shows me that I don't want to be on one of these programs because it is not any kind of a get-rich-quick scheme at all.
No, it's not. Definitely not.
And again, I think food is an important factor to help people remain in their homes, independent. As we know, as you saw earlier, the elderly have a few more variations in terms of the income that they can have to support some SNAP efforts. So food insecurity can become a big issue, and so this is one of those programs that hopefully will help reduce food insecurity. One of the other things that you probably have heard talked about on a national level is whether or not to include employment requirements when it comes to applying for SNAP. Currently in Minnesota, there is actually some employment requirements for receiving SNAP benefits, but Morrison County is exempted from that because of our unemployment rate. But it's not to say that rural Minnesota SEP is not working with individuals receiving SNAP if they're not interested in finding some employment. But Brian's going to highlight a little bit of their services now, and specifically around family investment and diversionary work program. So we'll turn over to Brian.
Yeah, and just on that SNAP, we currently do have just 2 SNAP clients we're working with. There's not supportive services funds available necessarily, so our whole push is reemployment and getting back in there. So anybody we're working with, obviously that's our concentration, is getting people back to work. So a couple things, starting with this Minnesota Family Investment Program chart. We've got 3 years tallied up here, and there's some, variations from year to year, but when you look at it at a quick glance, it surprisingly doesn't have any huge swings. Maybe from 15 up to 16 and 17, but what we're looking at here is not only number of people we've served, but total amount of cases, and then amongst those cases, how many people they might involve. So they don't all match up necessarily because we're looking at cases versus people, and then who's closed and for reasons why. So just working down the bottom of the sheet here, we can look at the different years, total number that we've served, how many we've exited, and then, of course, we like to hone in on the successful exits. The successful exits are, to us, it's they're going back to work, and they become tax-paying citizens. So working through that list, we've got different reasons that people may have separated. It could be just simply their 60 months that have expired. Administrative separation might be as simple as missing forms, paperwork. They're not getting paperwork turned into us. And at some point, when they don't turn in their paperwork, then we're just not going to, we don't work with them anymore. So they don't comply. They have to comply with the service to get the service. So maybe it's a drug felon. Luckily, we're not seeing a lot of that with 1, 0, and 0. So that's good. Failure to file, those are things like the report forms, household report forms, giving us that information. And then just going through, moving from the county, moving from the state, those are all some pretty straightforward reasons why. Sanctions, it's, when they get to the seventh sanction and they choose not to fix it, they're exited out. So unsubsidized employment is the one that, we like to hone in on. That's where we work our hardest, and that's the whole purpose of the program. And a couple things I'd like to just jump to with this unsubsidized employment. Every year, we focus harder and harder on work experience or work training with our clients and retraining or schooling or some type of, it doesn't even have to be a degree. Maybe it's a certification as a CNA or a welder. There's short-term training programs and things like this, and we're doing more and more of that. And 5 years ago, we may have looked at this population and said, well, is that a good risk? Is that a good use of our funds? We feel it's absolutely a good use of our funds. Personally, I think it's the best use of our funds. A person has to fit, and all the round pegs have to fit in the round holes. However, just a couple very recent and current examples of this is, we've got one person who we funded for plumbing. And this young lady, first of all, a female in a generally male-dominated field, went into school for plumbing. We found an employer that took her on as an apprentice, and after the apprenticeship and the certification from her education, we worked in OJT. So we're currently in this on-the-job training where SEP pays 50% of the wages for up to 6 months of that person's employment. That's to help the employer offset the training costs of somebody who's fresh out of school, who maybe has not the right background to be in this field, but they're giving them a try. So it becomes a nice partnership, and we chose to use some, MFIP funds that way, and now this person's been hired on full-time as a plumber with this agency in St. Cloud. We have a similar situation with another client who we put in with to be a phlebotomist, put her in school for phlebotomy, and then continued on to an EMT certification. She's currently working for Essentia Health and as a phlebotomist, and she's waiting for the next EMT opening so she can double up. So I like to hone in on these charts. Sometimes to me are confusing because I'm not working in the detail like our MFIP counselor and Karen and the financial workers, but I go right to those positive outcomes of this because that's our push is to let's retrain. Let's train these folks. Let's get them into school. Let's get into the NCRC training and get them reemployed. And rather than just supportive services, even though those are needed as well, just trying to fund some of that stuff over. The next one is the diversionary work. Very similar in terms of reasons why somebody may exit out or be exited, but just in a nutshell, this is a 4-month program. It's a in-between process, so there's a lot of things that we don't get to do with the diversionary work program just because we don't have time to do. So a perfect example is rather than funding a 2-year certification or schooling, obviously when they're in for 4 months, we're limited to maybe a short-term training or certification program. But so if we look at the chart going across the bottom, same thing with back to 2015, but with numbers served, exited, and then looking at our successful exits. Same types of reasons for being part of the program or not. And then you'll see over to the right referred to MFIP. So, that's just a reality, I guess, that some of these folks roll into the MFIP program. It doesn't happen in the 4 months, and they may become eligible for MFIP. In some cases, they also become eligible for our state dislocated worker programs based on household income and things like that. So we always look at where we can put them. So I think that's about it that I have with these two graphs. Questions?
And again, I just want to emphasize that financial assistance and rural Minnesota SEP work closely together too, because it's required that people have to look for work when they're on a financial assistance program. And so Karen and her staff work closely with Brian and their staff. So even when they talk about administrative issues or not getting forms in, that's because our agency and their agency are talking together around whether it be sanctions or getting their household report form in or those kinds of things. And so, it's a very important service to try and remain self-sufficient for some of these individuals.
Yeah. I just throw it out there too. When I go to different meetings amongst our agency, we have eight workforce centers in our 22 counties, and I hear of things where, SEP offices and county staff don't necessarily, they don't gel up, they don't work together, they don't necessarily know what one is doing for the other. And I sit there very quietly and they, what about you? We don't have that problem here. The relationships that we have built between SEP staff and the Morrison County staff are phenomenal, and I can share with you, the other 19 counties are quite jealous of the lack of issues that we have working with Morrison County. So I just throw that out there because that says a lot to Morrison County staff and our ability to work as a unit. So, and at the end result, the success, our clients see that. And they're the ones that benefit from it. So,
thank you, Brian.
Questions? Brian, I just have one for you. Are there any jobs available?
There's one or two, Jeff.
Is there? Okay.
Yep. We look at MinnesotaWorks.net, and that is such a small piece of what's out there. When you start looking at Indeed, all the job banks and things, but as of this morning, just Minnesota Works, and maybe Minnesota Works catches 15 to 18% of total job openings, but within 25 miles of Little Falls as of this morning, there's 185 jobs open. These aren't all full-time jobs, and they're a variation of jobs. Yeah. But one of the things that's happened in our community over this last 6 months is we are seeing employers raise wages.
Okay.
IWCO has made a large jump. Anderson Processing is still on the highest end. We've got Little Falls Health Services, October 1, raising wages. So we've seen the local community adjust to what's going on and in order to get staff. So yeah, there is a lot of jobs. Within 50 miles of Little Falls, just on Minnesota Works this morning, over 500 jobs. So all types, all sizes, all kinds, but it's, there's, if you want it, it's out there.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything further? Thank you all very, very kindly.
Thank you.
Sarah? I have a public health report. Sarah's going to talk a little bit about special needs basic care. This is a service that's funded by South Country Health Alliance, and it serves a specific population.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, Sarah.
So, like Brad said, we're going to talk about special needs basic care. So just a little background on South Country. It's a county purchased health plan that Morrison County purchases. They contract with the state and federal government to provide services to people enrolled through a state public health plan and or Medicare. So it was formed in 2001, serves 12 counties, has about 41,000 members, and has about 7 different programs. So we're focusing specifically on the population under special needs basic care, which is a managed care program for people with disabilities ages 18 to 64, have medical assistance or both Medicare Parts A, B, and D, and medical assistance. So there's 3 programs under special needs basic care. First one being ability care, and that has medical assistance and Medicare Parts A, B, and D all in one plan. So that's all managed then by South Country. The second is single care, which provides medical assistance for those who are not eligible for Medicare. And the third is shared care, which provides medical assistance benefits to those who are eligible for Medicare but choose to have their Medicare benefits through a different health plan.
And shared care is really the product that South Country is trying to encourage members to get into. because it then allows members to just have one card. And I'm actually passing a South Country Health Alliance brochure down that talks a little bit more in detail about each of those particular programs, but so.
Yeah, trying to work on getting the shared care to ability care. Yep. So in Morrison County, we have approximately 147 members that we are providing services for. And that graph that you see shows how they are, which programs they are enrolled in. So 18 of them are in ability care, which is about 12%. 17 of them are in shared care, again around 12%. And 112 of our members are single care, which is 76%. So a majority of our special needs basic care population. So just a little bit about what we do under special needs basic care. So we have two different types of staff. We have a care connector, which is a public health staff. And really what they are is a person that is our local connection here for South Country. So they bridge the gap between South Country and our local care coordinators, help ensure that they are connected to the right resources. We have all the current updates that we need, and they just really help bridge that gap between the two agencies. And we have about a 0.6 FTE in that area. We have care coordination, which is a nurse or social worker that helps assist that member in their health care needs, their dental needs, their mental health needs, helping them set up transportation, finding the appropriate doctor, helping them find the right medical equipment, all of those sorts of things. That is what a care coordinator does. We have about 1.5 FTE in that. About 125 cases is a full FTE. There's also 2 internal care coordinators who work at South Country, and they are currently managing about 180 of our cases. Currently, we are looking at trying to get more of those cases from South Country into our agency so we can internally provide care coordination to people that might benefit from that versus having somebody that's not local. So when you sign up for South Country, you automatically are given a care coordinator. And you have the option of accepting a health risk assessment. This is voluntary. It does not, if you deny the health risk assessment, it does not mean you do not receive care coordination, you still do. But a health risk assessment just helps identify what are your health needs, what can we do to help you meet those health care needs, what are your goals for the year, and kind of helps us identify who is this person and how can we best serve them. So if they accept that health risk assessment, we send a welcome letter to that member within 10 days of them enrolling in the program. We do a face-to-face visit within 30 days of enrollment to complete that assessment. We complete a service plan within 30 days of the completion of that health risk assessment to identify goals. We do quarterly phone contacts with that member to review goals and discuss their progress. We also will do a face-to-face visit with that member every 6 months to discuss their goals. Would they like to change their goals? Where are things at? How can we better serve them? And then we do an annual face-to-face to review and update that health risk assessment. If they do not accept the health risk assessment, we still send out that welcome letter. We offer a face-to-face to complete that assessment. If they do refuse or are unable to be reached, the coordinator will complete a refusal or unable to reach documentation tool within 30 days of enrollment. They do have to attempt to reach that member 3 times on 3 separate dates by phone or face-to-face to see if they want to complete a health risk assessment. That is a requirement from South Country. And then we would do a semi-annual phone contact to discuss the member's current status, and face-to-face is offered annually. We really try to get people to accept the health risk assessment because it's important for us to understand their needs and what their goals would be. But like I said, if they deny, it does not change the fact that we are still their care coordinator and we will offer that service.
And part of the purpose is to reduce the medical costs, helping this individual manage their medical costs in a more cost-effective manner. Some of these individuals may access the emergency room more often than not, or be on higher medications than they may need to be, some of those things. So it's really working together with that recipient to help use the medical benefits in the most efficient manner possible. So.
And so just to show you what our member involvement is, out of our 147 members, we were unable to reach around 21%. 34% accepted that health risk assessment, and 45% refused. We are working really hard on increasing our health risk assessment percentage and decreasing that refusal rate. We've been working on that diligently for the last year. We're hoping to see that decrease. So this just gives you an idea of our revenue. In 2017, it was about $54,000. Our projection for 2018 was around $66,000. As of August, we were actually 117% of our projection, as we were close to $78,000. I should mention that part of that was due to some back billing from 2017. We were able to identify that there were some areas that we could be billing for that we weren't. So we caught that, got some back billing completed, and now moving forward, we'll be able to increase that revenue. So our projection for 2018 is about $100,000. So that is what I have for you. Any questions or comments?
Concerns?
Number one reason people would refuse a health risk assessment?
I think some of it comes down to the population that we serve. It's a hard population. It's a younger population with disabilities. They may have case managers, psychiatrists, a lot of different service providers. So I think they see it as one more thing, and they might not see the benefit of the fact that we're the coordinator of those services. So it's really about explaining what we do and doing it in a way that they understand.
Thank you.
Sarah, I'm not exactly sure how you keep all this stuff straight because you have your hands in many things.
Really, really smart.
She is. There's no doubt about it.
Just ask my husband.
When you do this face-to-face stuff, do you actually physically go to their home? Do they come to see you? Is it 50-50 or?
Either way, some choose to come to the office, some we go to their home, whatever their preference is, because we just want them to engage with us and to meet with us, and so whatever they choose, we will do.
Of that 45% of refusals who really don't want to talk about it, and I kind of get it.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of get that, you know what, it's none of your business. I do. I understand that. Of that 45, do you probably go to their home? They're probably not coming to you, I would expect.
In those situations, we do not go to their home. We
Okay.
reach out by phone
Okay.
and try to engage them that
Okay.
way. We're looking at that process, but this time it's mostly by phone.
Okay, very good. Just curious. Very good, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Very much. I have two food, beverage, and lodging requests. The first one is a change in ownership at the Subway in the Lowell Falls Walmart.
I'd look for a motion.
Mr. Chair.
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none, those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes.
And the second is for a new establishment license for Sanchez Burrito in Little Falls. It's going into formerly the China Dragon in Laura B's, I believe.
Okay.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none, those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion passes. Brad,
That's all
I
have
think you're
today.
done.
Thank you.
Thank you. Land Services. Miss Amy, you're next.
Morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Still morning, yes. Okay, I have one item for you today, and that is to consider the rezone request from Dean and Donna Longy. As a reminder, this was considered by the Planning Commission back in January, and they did recommend approval of this rezone, so now it is before you for consideration. And this is to go from shoreline residential to shoreline commercial, 5-acre piece of his parcel.
I'd look for a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve, Mr. Chair.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. I would now look for discussion.
If I may, Amy, or Mr. Chair, again, just based on, the information of what I can recall back in January, was it, right?
Yes.
That they had a great discussion at the Planning Commission, and, the biggest thing is, there's no, and please correct me if I'm wrong, there's no additional commercial shoreline adjacent to this property, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, and this basically, he wants to put up some kind of a wedding venue, which is kind of a broad interpretation what a wedding venue is, because I'm sure you could use it for suppers. I know it doesn't have to be exactly a wedding, correct?
No, it's really a building made available to people to rent out for gatherings, I guess would be probably in the broadest sense what he's looking to do. As discussed in the Planning Commission meeting, rezones, though, you cannot condition them. So if you grant the zoning to shoreline commercial, that opens that up to all of the uses allowed in the shoreline commercial zoning district. This is one process we do not have the ability to condition for that specific use.
And my concern about this one, and I don't use that word too often, is that, yes, it can be used for other things so that rezone stays with the property. So if that person were to sell it, that person may do something else that qualifies under the shoreline commercial other than the wedding venue, correct?
So, Mr. Chair, what you're effectively being asked to do is to officially change the zoning map for that area. Yes, so it's really not granted to the property owner. It is officially changing the zoning map.
And we've had other rezones throughout my years being on here, and I'm, again, concerned that we could be starting a precedence. I know each one should stand on its own, but this is something, once we rezone this one from basically to commercial, the next person that comes to us, again, each one is different, I understand that, but we have to be careful what we do, because when you change one thing, it affects other things that we come do. And we've just had one here within the last couple months that was right on Highway 10, and they wanted to rezone it to commercial, and they had great access to Highway 10, and that was turned down by the Planning Commission, I believe, and of course, it never made it to the board. And we had another one out, and this was years ago, I don't know if you remember, with the horse thing, where they couldn't have more than 2 horses, and they wanted to rezone. That one was also denied, I think, just by the board. It was approved by the Planning Commission, but then we rechanged the ordinance, which we could do in this case too. So, and I would like to see us change the ordinance so maybe something like this can be conditioned with whether it's a CUP or an IUP. So that's kind of a way I would like to proceed with this one. And I know it takes time to do that, but we're looking at changing some ordinances so things like this may or may not be able to be in shoreland residential. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay, so again, there's my thing, and I would have a hard time, basically, I would not be for approving this rezone.
Further discussion?
Mr. Chair, Amy, when you zone it commercial, if they wanted to build a house there, would that be permitted?
Within shoreline commercial, dwellings are an allowed use. That's one of the few commercial zoning districts where residences are allowed.
Because I kind of agree with Randy on this one here, that, you don't know what could be there later on once it gets zoned that way, so I have a concern about that, too.
Further discussion?
I'm going to support this change. The Planning Commission approved it. The Elmdale Township officials had no concerns about it.
That's right.
I'm just going to support our entrepreneur that wants to create a new business and increase our tax base. So I'll be voting yes.
I also would love to support this, but I would love to support it under the guidance of a CUP or an IUP. And we can't do that as the ordinance is laid out today. Thus, I probably don't do this enough, but I have to agree with Commissioner Wincher. Further discussion?
Mr. Chair, I just want to remind you that a supermajority is required to change the zoning, just as a reminder. So it's a roll call vote.
So a supermajority, 4 of us would have to agree to it.
Further discussion? I'll ask for a vote. Those in favor?
It's roll call.
Roll call. Those in favor? Commissioner Lemire?
Aye.
Wincher?
Opposed, nay.
Lane?
Commissioner Blaine votes aye.
Wilson?
I'll vote aye.
And I will oppose it. Thus, if I understand that correctly, that motion fails. So I would look to Land Services and ask the question, if I was the individual that we were speaking of without speaking of them, in this case, what would it take to do this? A change in ordinance, is that correct?
That's correct.
And if we're going through an ordinance change, which I realize we are, would we be able to entertain changing the ordinance to include something like a venue such as this?
That's certainly going to be kept in mind as we are looking at the use charts in the new shoreland section. And so some of these uses that have come up over the past years that we've considered will certainly be looked at when we're looking at those use charts.
Okay, very good. Thank you very kindly.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
if I may, Amy, the timelines, because obviously we're going to have communication with the Longies on their proposal. Timelines when we would have completion of our shoreland ordinance changes.
We expect to be adopting the new ordinance section in spring of we're in 2019 is when we would be looking at it. Since we're rewriting that entire section, there's a lot of consideration that needs to be made on all of it. And then DNR review.
Okay. DNR review would push passage out possibly?
No, we're hoping with timing of everything, incorporating all of that, to be looking at spring. So we are timing that with the construction season
Excellent.
of 2019.
Excellent. Very good. Thank you.
All right.
I'm going to propose that we take a 5-minute break.
Perfect.
Back to order again. I wonder if it would be appropriate, or if it's disappropriate, I need to hear that from someone, if we could rearrange things a little bit and bring Steve Messerschmidt up first. We need to talk about our levy, and we've got a couple commissioners and maybe an administrator that have to leave a little early today. So I wonder if Steve could come up and we could talk about the levy. The levy master. And I believe what we're talking about is setting a preliminary levy that's required by law, and I'm going to let Steve tell us some more about that.
We'll just pass it on.
This is something that I always forget the HRA.
Oh, yes, yes.
So I'm just going to hand it out now. I don't know why that one I always think it's just part of it, but it's not, so. Once a year, I mean.
That's a separate line item on the levy?
It goes under a special levy on our, when you have the city, township, schools, and county, then that's under the other levies.
Yeah.
That's what this one falls under.
So it's a separate motion and
Separate
action.
motion and everything else, so.
Okay, Steve,
If we want to start with that one first, we can do that. And it's the HRA, it's 32.5, it's not a change from the previous year. I think it's been 32.5 at least for the last 3 years.
I'll make a motion to approve, Mr. Chair.
I'll second.
And what we're making a motion for is a preliminary 2018 levy budget for the Morrison County Housing and Redevelopment Authority at $32,500. Is that correct?
That's correct, Mr. Chair.
And a roll call vote, please.
Discussion? Hearing no discussion, this is a roll call vote. Commissioner Wincher?
Aye.
Wilson?
Aye.
Lane?
Aye.
Lemire?
Aye.
And myself is an aye vote. That motion passes.
All right, and then the next, we'll talk about the county's preliminary levy and budget for 2019. As you well know, we've met several times to discuss this this proposal at the levy at 2.55 and the budget at 4.32. As you know, this is a preliminary. Once it's set, it can't go up, it can go down. The final is going, the final levy certification is like December 26th. So we have a meeting, we have more meeting dates planned to go over this, and so we can start with the levy first at the 2.55, which is $18,918,424. To approve that.
I'd look for a motion on a temporary, or not a temporary, I'm sorry, on a preliminary levy for Morrison County for 2019, which today is at 2.55.
I'll make that motion for more discussion.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Further discussion?
If I may, when Steve mentions that it can go down, we do have other, again, how many meetings have we had already, Steve, on this budget?
Oh, boy, we've had it 6, 7.
Quite a few.
already.
There's been a few there's been a few options that we have to look at yet, obviously, that we looked at as far as presenters to us. So again, I just want to reiterate that this cannot go up, it can only go down.
It only go down.
And I also think there's a few items on that we've been presented with that we will be able to bring that down somewhat.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, there's some detail you're waiting for from direction from the last budget meeting regarding there's a couple positions that are proposed in this, and we want to vet those a bit more. The direction you gave was to kind of talk a little bit more about numbers, about other alternatives when it comes to service levels, things of that nature, and so that's going to be worked on in the coming months to get you some more data to really, no one in this organization takes adding positions lightly, and certainly that's been directed from you that we very thoroughly vet that, because that's an expense that's ongoing, and so we all recognize that as leadership. Certainly you as a board have directed that to be taken quite seriously, and so more work will be done. At this point in time, I think they are warranted enough for that continued discussion, and so we'll have that and then look to you to make a final determination on whether or not those are investments that are important to make at this time or if they can be put off. So we'll continue to meet, we'll continue to talk about that, but again, just as a side note, since I have been here and worked with the board, I've appreciated the direction you've given and really set the tone for conservative funding, conservative budgets. That's appreciated. I think the leadership certainly brings that forward and recognizes that also. So we're sitting well financially in a solid position because of that wise spending. So I appreciate that direction.
We've never been one over the years to come in with some
outlandish
9% levy, 10% levy, and all of a sudden let's whittle it down. We come in with a pretty conservative line. We know there's some things out there that are still to be looked at, but still 2.55 when you look at all the other things going on. It's a pretty good number, but we also know that there's some things there that can be changed yet too. So.
We have built-in costs, and most of what we do is service-oriented, so people cost money. And so the built-in basic line items of salaries is really what drives the vast portion of this. Just looking at what we're doing and what we're investing in with our facility, with our structure, and that hasn't impacted our levy. We've been planful of those major expenses like that to make sure that we're prepared and doing that at a time that makes sense for the funding, that we're investing at a time when the levy's coming off for debt service, and we're continuing that. We're not adding to it to further burden the taxpayers unnecessarily. So being planful, I think, of those major expenses has been, a path that the board has really both this board and prior boards have really set in place. So it makes doing what we do easier and more appropriate. So thank you for that.
Further discussion?
I just want to say thanks to Steve for helping us out on this budget and continuing to work in the future on seeing what we can, see if we can better the 2.55 for our constituents. But
well, there's just a lot there to throw at you guys. I mean, you got 15 departments and there's 15 different things going on in each department, and it's just trying to filter through all that gets, and there's a few that are newer. It just takes some time to understand the inner workings of all that. And there's a lot there.
I like how you lay it out. Appreciate it.
Yeah, you provide concise information to us that gives us plenty of time to review it, and that's extremely appreciated. Thank you.
Further discussion?
And again, the detail that Steve gives us too, and, Deb and, all the departments, it's just great information that some people just don't realize the
Time.
work and time that goes into these budgets for not just the board, but for all the members of the county.
Anything further? I'll ask for a vote. This will be a roll call vote. Commissioner Wincher.
Aye.
Wilson.
Aye.
Blaine.
Aye.
Lemire.
Aye.
And myself is an aye vote. That motion passes.
All right, and the second vote we'll need to take is on the preliminary budget, and that budget is $47,247,853, which is a 4.32% increase. Some of the things in here that we talked about that you've seen come through the budget, there's some fund balance being used that we've set some money aside for that we've talked about. The election equipment that's coming out, that's a $436,000 that we got a little bit of money from the state, but most of it was the money we've been setting aside to help pay for this, and that'll happen here coming up in the budget year. Plus, I think there was some, the sheriff had some communication stuff too. So there's some items in here that in the budget that, the ebbs and flows that we kind of put some money aside to help offset the cost of these things so that we're not borrowing money in the future to pay for equipment and things like that. So just want to let you know that 4.32 includes a lot of some of that stuff in this budget. So
We need a motion on that too, right?
Yep, and roll call.
Okay, I would look for a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Further discussion? Hearing none, this is also a roll call vote. Commissioner Blaine?
Aye.
Lemire?
Aye.
Wilson?
Aye.
Wincher?
Aye.
And myself is an aye vote. Thank you for that, Steve.
all right, well, thank you very
As
much.
long as you're here, can we do warrants too?
Sure.
Or, excuse me, Deb is also here too, so we might as well do warrants as long as Steve is here.
Any questions?
Looking to pay all the bills.
So moved.
Second. Blaine's got it.
And this will also be a roll call vote. Commissioner Lemire?
Aye.
Wincher?
Aye.
Wilson?
Aye.
Blaine? And myself is an aye vote. That motion passes.
Get the bills paid.
Thank you. Get the bills paid.
Thanks.
And gentlemen, if you need to take off, please. And Ms. Gruber,
Well, I have more updates, so I'm going to stick
Okay.
around here.
Okay. Emily, thank you very kindly for bearing with us here today. Our extension report is coming up next.
All right. Good. Oh, it looks like it's still morning, so good morning, commissioners and everyone.
It is.
Just got in under the gun here. All right, so I have a few key updates I want to get through. So some of them will just be quick, kind of rapid fire, and then kind of at the end I have a bigger kind of thing I want to get to. So we'll jump into it. You hopefully are aware that we did fill the crops educator position formerly held by Dan Martin. So that was filled by Nathan Drewitz on Monday, August 13th was his first day. He apologizes. He was supposed to come with me this morning, but he had a training he had to attend for some of his new employee stuff. So he is very sorry, but he does hope to get to a commissioner meeting in the next month or two. So you can look forward to kind of meeting him. Just kind of briefly, I've been working with him pretty closely, kind of just getting him introduced to the 3 counties and meeting some key people and committees. And I know that's something he's working on independently as well, sending emails, making sure he knows who's who and what's what. He is originally from Missouri and went to school there, and then has a master's in agronomy from University of Wisconsin-Madison. A lot of his work is in weed science, and he's done a lot of work with pigweed species, so water hemps, Palmer amaranth, all of that. So I think he's going to be a really great addition to our tri-county arrangement for extension, and he has a lot of knowledge and enthusiasm. So I'm really, really excited to have him on board.
He's actually been here.
Yep. Came at the budget meeting.
Oh, we came to the budget meeting. Okay.
So we actually did get a face.
Okay, good, good. All right. Yeah, I know he's been kind of going all over. I don't know. So, well, good. I'm glad you've met him, and I know he does want to come to kind of give a more formal report to the board at some point in the coming months as well.
And of course, we will welcome him as we welcome you anytime.
Oh, yes. Well, I will let him know that. And then we do have another open position right now for extension. That would be for Stearns and Benton, it's horticulture. Then, of course, here in Morrison County, that's more the local foods focused person. So that was Beth Berlin's position. I can report that they are going to be doing interviews on Friday. So just in a few days here, I believe they're interviewing 3 or 4 individuals. And from what I've been told, the committee is very confident about who they selected to bring in for interviews. And they're really hoping that they will find somebody to fill this position on Friday. So kind of stay tuned for that. Hopefully we'll have something soon and have somebody started in the next 4 to 6, 8 weeks or so. So just a quick recap kind of summer things, and some of this you've already heard, so I won't belabor it too long. We did our Morrison County Dairy Field Day July 19th, I believe it was. That was at David Van Heel's family, Rainbow Acres LLC, at their calf facility. We had 100 people there. It was the highest attended Dairy Field Day, I think, for the whole state this year, so that was really awesome. Morrison County farmers really turned out, so that was great. It was a really great day. Van Heels are a great family. We were able to learn a lot about calf care and other things that are going on with that, so that was awesome. And then just last week, I had the Morrison County Beef Field Day, one of my favorite annual events, kind of one of the premier annual extension events for Morrison County. We had about 70 in attendance there. That was hosted by Joe and Nancy Berg of Berg's Red Tail Ranch, just near Little Falls here. So we were able to bring in a lot of speakers to cover a lot of topics on rotational grazing, pasture management, interseeding, some discussion on vaccinations and vet-related things, and then we also had, from our agroforestry team at Extension, Jomi Zamora came and presented on silvopasture, which is the concept of utilizing forested or wooded areas to also graze livestock in a way that supports both of those systems kind of simultaneously. It's good for the trees and also good for the forages being grown there. So that was a new concept for many in attendance. It's been a new concept for me. I just learned about it 2 years ago for the first time. So there was a lot of interest in there, and so I think we may bring Jomi back in the future, maybe even in the winter for our summer or for our winter workshop to talk a little bit more about that, because I know there was a lot of interest and a lot of questions, and I think that given the terrain, the landscape of Morrison County, it could be a really good fit for some of the producers in parts of the county. Other things in the summer seems so long ago already. County Fair, I was at the Morrison County Fair for I think 3 days, helping with various of the 4-H shows, a lot of the 4-H programming stuff. It's kind of the one time a year I get to do 4-H, which I really like getting to work with those kids. And of course, a lot of their parents are farmers I've worked with regularly, regular attendees at our events. So it's nice to connect with them and the whole family in that way. And so helping with the shows and just kind of being around and talking on the radio on Party Line and doing all that is really great and one of my favorite parts of the summer for sure. Kind of to wrap up the summer stuff, we bid farewell and best wishes to our interns. So you will remember Eric, I believe you met him last time I was here. He went back to Kansas State to finish his senior year. He's pursuing an ag ed degree. He'll be student teaching this spring in the state of Kansas. And then you may recall we also had an intern that was Stearns Benton, but did some Morrison County work, Michaela, and she is back at SDSU finishing her final semester in ag communications. And I know both of them, they claim that they had a really great experience. I think they did. We were so happy to have them on board. And I think you may recall when Eric was here, we just talked about how much additional value they bring to the counties for very minor investments in time and resources. They're just able to do additional programming we aren't able to get to. And so it's really great to have them on board for that. They both did a really great kind of final report, and I am remiss I did not bring it with me, so I will make sure that you get that just so you can see, especially from Eric, just what he was doing and kind of the impacts that it had for Morrison County, and he was a position that was shared with Todd County as well. So looking forward to winter programming. We're starting to plan for that now. Tomorrow, actually, our local group is going to kind of be meeting to discuss that. And then our northern half of the state group is meeting on Thursday to work on programming stuff too. So just kind of tentatively, some things that I have planned or would like to do. I already mentioned the annual beef winter workshop. In the past, that has just been cow-calf, but I've been slowly moving it towards more general beef because we do have a lot of producers in Morrison County that are also feeding out cattle, and so I think it's important that they are getting access to some of this too, and luckily a lot of our extension folks and other people can kind of do dual purpose there. So look forward to that. Also, I've been working with Jim Sulfur, our regional dairy educator, on developing a curriculum called Planning Your Dairy Farm Future, and kind of the whole purpose of the program is by the end of it, it's a 6-session curriculum, so it's a full class basically, and they will create an official farm business plan, and it is for farms who are hoping to do something, whether that's start a farm transfer process, expand the herd, build new buildings, switch what type of milking system they're using. And so what we want to do is prepare them, to make sure they assess what position they're in to do that, are they able to do that, and then help them create this business plan using Ag Plan, which is a program from the Center for Farm Financial Management at the University of Minnesota, so that they are able to complete our 6-session program and then are basically ready for a meeting with lawyers, lenders, whomever it may be, and they'll have a formal business plan prepared because that's sometimes the piece that is missing, or parts of a business plan are missing. So we want to equip them with that fully so that moving forward with these things, they can do that. So that's a program that we're hoping to launch this winter as well. And I think the idea is it's going to be piloted in Stearns County, but it's meant to be a program that can be replicated and kind of duplicated anywhere. And so look for that to travel to Morrison County in the future. We're hoping we're going to be hand inviting farms this first time around with the assistance of Farm Business Management. They've kind of been our advisors on this project as well. And so I know we do have a few Morrison County farms on the list for this first round, so it will already be having some impact. And then when we're ready to kind of launch it fully after the pilot, hopefully we can have it up here with some regularity to serve the dairy producers up here as well. Another winter programming thing we're looking at, you may recall last winter we did a program called Farming in Tough Times that was meant to kind of address the financial issues, woes, crisis, whatever word you want to use, that farmers are currently facing. And so we are wanting to do another program like that that is hopefully emphasizes a little more the stress piece of it, which kind of ties in with the next thing. So you'll see on your break, I snuck some literature in front of you there. And so I want to start actually with the first flyer on the bottom, the full page one. This week is National Farm Safety and Health Week, and Governor Dayton also declared it Farm Safety and Health Week for the state of Minnesota as well. So that's very exciting that he notices that, recognizes that, and has declared it Farm Safety and Health Week for the state. So this is a really big kind of multi-organization, multi-agency effort just to help increase awareness of farm safety and health. So you can see kind of the participating partners in that, the U.S. Ag Safety and Health Centers. AgriSafe Network puts on webinars every day, and every day there's a different theme, and these are free, and I have been blasting these out on social media. I run some Facebook pages. We've been trying to build some traction for them that way, and so you can kind of see what's going on with that. And again, this is a nationwide effort that they do, and so you can see each of the day's themes there, and today's theme is on health, suicide, and opioids, so really kind of aiming on that human health side. I think farm safety, we think a lot of equipment, livestock, grain bins, confined spaces, all of that. And those are really, really important. But some of you are aware that I personally am very passionate about farmer stress, farmer mental health, caring for the farmer themselves. I think that's the first step in creating a safe farm. They can have every protocol in the world and every piece of safety gear on their equipment, but if they're not taking care of themselves, then that's where mistakes are made. People suffer, all of that. So I have some resources, and some of these I believe I brought before and you've seen before, but I wanted to get them in front of you again just so you remember that they are available. So you can see these first two you've probably seen before. These are from the Department of Ag. So the first, the Coping with Farm and Rural Stress in Minnesota brochure. This is just a really, really great brochure that goes through all the different resources that are available to farmers right now. So it stems from stress, mental health services, if they need help with daily living, so things like paying the electricity bill, programs there, and then the business, financial, legal help. So the University of Minnesota Extension is still doing their free farm financial counseling program. If they need farmer lender mediation, Farmers Legal Action Group, all of those things are in this brochure. And so this is something that I've been taking to all my programs, just kind of setting out, not really mentioning it. Of course, we know that sometimes it's hard to admit when we aren't well or something's wrong with our business or ourselves or our families. And so this way, I'm just getting these out and about within the counties so people can grab them if they want. I've been getting them to the SWCD offices, all of that, so that they're available as a resource. And then the little business card, again, you may have seen this before. This is just the information for the Minnesota Farm and Rural Helpline. So this is put on by the Department of Agriculture, but it is a third party who runs it. So they really want to emphasize that it's free, it's confidential, it is available around the clock, 24/7. This helpline can be called. The confidential piece, again, that's very important. So it is not Department of Ag employees that are answering the phone. It is a separate counseling service that's doing so. That's something that we've kind of been made aware of, that people, for lack of a better word, are ashamed, or they sometimes don't want to admit when something's wrong, so that may deter them from going to who they would usually go to, whether that's their clergy, a spouse, someone at home, somebody in the community. And so this is a really great way to break down that barrier and still get people help if they need it. And I want to mention all these resources I'm sharing today. I have a pile of them in my office. So if you or somebody you know would like more of them, simply give me a call. I can mail them. I can, drive them to you, whatever you need to do, because I'm getting regular shipments of them from the Department of Ag. So this last one is a newer one. They just put it out last month, so you may not have seen it. So this is from the Department of Agriculture and UMass, Upper Midwest Ag Safety and Health Center. And this is something that I have been asked for from the Morrison County Extension Committee, from some other people I work with in the different counties about, we want to help, but what can we do? I don't know how to recognize if something's wrong, and if something is wrong, I don't know what action steps to take. So they made this great handout, and it can be used for others or for yourself as well. So we are distributing it to farmers. So just talking about both the behavior and physical signs of stress. You can see all the things on there, and so if you're really noticing a lot of these things in a person, you may want to, consider what else you can do to help them. So then you can see on the other side with the big question mark, it kind of says, what can you do? And so if it is for yourself and what you can do for somebody else, so just listening to them. Some people just need a vent and get things off their chest. You can always share your concerns if they're not coming to you. You can be prepared for some pushback, but I am very much a proponent that, it never hurts to let somebody know you're concerned about them. That may upset them or embarrass them, but you're acting in their best interest. I still believe that. And so, always encourage them to reach out to somebody. These also have the number for the Farm and Rural Helpline on them. I just really want to emphasize this because I think sometimes I've heard comments of, you may be overreacting, you're just trying to get ahead of the ball on it, I do want to share that last week in Minnesota, a dairy farmer did commit suicide. I really am not comfortable sharing further details, just out of respect for the family. It is not from this immediate area, but it was in Minnesota, and so I've been getting several calls, concerns, talking to farmers about it who are very impacted by this, and so it very much is a problem. And I think that some people have really been careful to not declare what's happening a crisis or, an emergency situation, but, somebody has died, and I think one person passing away is too many. That's kind of me personally from my standpoint. So I just want you to be aware of that and really encourage you as you're out and about to share these resources. You know, just the more we can talk about mental health and stress and coping with it and resources, you know, the more we can break down stigmas and just help these people who really need it. You know, I will say this about the person I mentioned from last week. A lot of people who I've talked to have said, I would have never known, or I had no idea, or it was the last person you'd expect. And that's sometimes the case. So that's why we really do need to be watching for these signs and aware of them. And so, as I mentioned, we are planning a program for this winter. We're not exactly sure what it's going to look like, but we are thinking it's going to be centered more around this stuff and provided, I think, to farmers, but also to agribusiness people on, you know, how can you recognize these signs and what can you do? I think the what can you do piece is always hard for people. I know it's been hard for me, but I've worked really hard to educate myself on it so that, you know, they know that I am there as a resource for them. And that kind of extends both professionally, but also personally. It's just something that I'm passionate about and it's important. And so I want people to know that there's always help available to them, from me at least. So that is kind of all I have on that. But yeah, just again, as you're out and about, remember National Farm Safety and Health Week this week. So if you are interested, check out those webinars just so you can kind of see what's being discussed, what's on people's minds, what's going on with this. And of course, these resources, if you need any more, simply just give me a call or send me an email, reach out to me, and I will make sure that you get more and they get into the right hands.
Outstanding. Anything further for Emily? Emily, the wearer of many hats, thank you very, very kindly for your time.
Thank you.
Very nice. Thank you. Auditor. Deb, you're in the house.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Afternoon.
I just have a couple of really quick items. We have an agreement between the county and the Eastern Morrison County Four-Wheeler Club to establish recreational trails and maintain them, and then also to approve the resolution to sponsor the Eastern Morrison Four-Wheeler Club for the fiscal year 2019 of the state. Am I on the right one? Yep.
Do you want them all together?
You can approve them separately or together. Either way works.
I'll make a motion for that one.
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none, those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That motion passes.
Thank you.
And then the other one?
Have an exempt permit for the Big Lake Sportsman's Club to hold a raffle November 24th at Stonehill Bar and Grill.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion? Hearing none, those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion passes.
And then we have Minnesota Trail Assistance Program Agreement with the state, the Recreational Trails Association, and then also to authorize disbursements as funds are received. And an agreement to sponsor the trails was approved last April. So this is the agreement with the state that we get every fall.
So do we need a motion on
Isn't
this?
that what you just approved?
We, in April, we approved the sponsorship, and in the fall, we approved the agreement. These, the one that we approved earlier was for the Eastern Morrison County agreement with the county. And this is our agreement with the state to get the funds.
Do you have that in the board packet?
Should have been. We sent it in late. Tabitha, did you see that one?
Well, no, Lanners, that's the other one. Lucian? I don't think so.
I just have the Eastern Morrison County stuff.
Oh, okay.
Oh, she sent it later. Okay.
I guess I didn't.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so it's the state.
So it's an agreement with the county and the state. Sorry, I thought it made it in. Was it not on the list?
Not before she sent it out. So,
okay.
It's the approve the Minnesota Trail Assistance Program Agreement for the fiscal year 2019 for the Morrison County Recreational Trail Association snowmobile trails, and then to authorize that disbursement of funds as they're received. So it's that pass-through that we serve as, which we always have. So it's that agreement.
I would look for a motion of what Ms. Gruber just read.
So move.
Second.
Motion and a second, discussion. As stated, this is just virtually a pass-through that we're the pass-through for it. Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion passes.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. And Deb, I didn't mean to step on your toes, but we approved the county board warrant,
Yes, we
so
did. Thank
we can
you.
skip that one. Public Works, look who's here.
Welcome.
Tom, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Okay, thank you.
I have 2 resolutions for Steve, and one of them is the ground-in pavement message, which I think there was 5 roads that we did with the HSIP money that we applied for. So that's the first one, I believe.
Make a motion to approve, Mr. Chair.
Second.
And this will be a roll call vote. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. Commissioner Lemire?
Aye.
Blaine? Wilson?
Aye.
And myself is an aye vote. That motion passes.
Do you need the originals, Deb, or?
Yes, I'll take that.
Okay, I'll bring them up in a sec, after this next one. The second one is for the same contractor who did our seasonal striping in the county.
Motion to approve, Mr. Chair.
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none. Those in favor, and this is also a roll call vote. Commissioner Wilson?
Aye.
Blaine?
Aye.
Wilson? Excuse me, Lemire?
Aye.
And myself is an aye vote. That motion passes. It's pretty easy.
Yeah, well, that's easy.
Thanks, Tom.
Thank you, Tom.
And we took Steve Messerschmidt early this morning, and I believe that brings us to administration. And Mike is here this morning.
He is. I'm going to sneak in ahead of him, though, because he's...
Fire away.
for just
He's
one-
got time, obviously.
It's not in your packet, but I wanted to talk about, a while back, we had talked about the personnel policy revisions, and there was one component that I was bringing back with modified language, if you recall. And that was for the authorizing the board, county board authorized position, to keep that county board approval process in place to make sure that you are able to provide consensus or approval for those when they come in to be filled, if there's a vacancy. That was the modification that we had that I'm bringing back. Since then, there was one other component that we did add that I wanted to share with you, and it was sent out to the leadership group. It kind of came about in the last month as we were working on this, so that's why I haven't brought it since then, because we wanted new grievance procedure practice, or a new grievance procedure in the policy. What we learned as we were going through it in the last number of months, it's kind of confusing, and so we worked to clarify that. Previously, it was a 4-step process, but for all intent and purposes, we really only have a 3-step process where it's within the department. If somebody's disciplined, they have the ability to grieve that, and then it comes to me as administrator. And then what we're proposing is it works with a group where they're able to work with the chair of the board, the county attorney, and myself, or appointees therein, if they have a grievance that they want to move through a system and have a look at in terms of a discipline that was received. And so we got the language and actually worked with a labor attorney we were working with at the time through a different grievance procedure for a specific employee, and this is what was recommended because it was confusing for the employee, it was confusing for us in a 4-step process. That first it was the immediate supervisor, then the department head, and if it wasn't the department head, it was me in step 3. And it like I said, for all intent and purposes, these are the 3 steps that make much more sense in terms of having that easier to understand and navigate. And so that's the recommended change with that, and just clarifying definitions so everybody's on the same page when it comes to the process of a grievance if you choose to avail yourself of that.
So to make sure I'm on the right page, you're letting us know this information to send it to us at another date, because then we're going to act on it, or help me out where we're going with this.
Well, we've looked at all of the personnel policy changes previously.
Yeah.
So the idea would be today to consider those and approve those if you're comfortable with it. You've seen this all before. The only difference is this grievance procedure, which is going from a 4-step, somewhat cumbersome, to a 3-step process that involves the immediate supervisor, department head, the administrator, and then a team approach.
Look for a motion.
So move.
Second.
Discussion?
That first part that you're talking about, the personnel, was that the personnel change?
Yes, or I guess.
We were going to change it to not include us, but you changed it back to include us.
Yep, based on the discussion that we had, yep.
That's all I didn't know.
Yep.
Right?
Nope, I brought it back with that recommended adjustment.
Further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes.
Thank you. And some of those changes are impacting some of those, like the year-end practice, so we wanted to get that included, and so we can communicate that out to the departments and make those changes that it applies to.
Excellent.
Okay, then, Mike. Thank you for patiently waiting.
Mike, that just means she's done. You're all that's left.
Thanks for waiting, sorry. Oh, I could be your lovely assistant here.
Thank you very kindly.
You might do it. Good yourself.
Good.
Thank you.
Good man.
Good afternoon. I just passed out a copy of the updated budget. I don't know if there's any specific questions on it or not, but
Tell me, how's it looking?
Good.
I'm looking at it, but how's it looking?
Good. Good. At the site right now, there's guys working on some punch list items. Cleaners are coming at the end of the week, and then furniture's being delivered on Monday and Tuesday to be set up in the building. So roofers have about 4 days left after today if it doesn't rain. So, and then
Mike, do you have any concerns at all looking at this budget today?
At the budget itself, no. I think the items that came out of the contingency originally, I think related to our underground, and then generator change, and then some of our roofing stuff, I think was the bulk of it, so.
The bulk of that stuff was stuff that just happened, wasn't it? Sewer pipes?
The sewer pipe,
the
we
roof that
opened it up,
just
they're going to
never-
try to save, if it was good, we're going to try to save it. Well, we opened it up and it wasn't good.
Yeah.
We opened up another section, it wasn't good, and it didn't make sense to leave bad in the middle of two good parts type of a thing. And it's kind of the same thing with the roof, and then, the generator itself. But, we've gone back through and we've changed out some valves in the building, some big heating main valves that didn't work, and then some old Vic bands and stuff like that. As long as we were going through, we had the system drained down. It doesn't make sense to go back and then drain it down later, because that's a lot of labor just to drain the entire
Absolutely.
facility down, so.
Any questions or concerns about any of this stuff, guys?
Oh, it looks real good. Took a tour the other day. It looks nice. And we're talking like October 1st or so about moving in there approximately?
Well, the tail end of the week, the 24th, we're hoping to occupy that first level.
Okay.
And then the following week, we'll move to the lower level to try to get that completed and occupied. And then, like we had mentioned, we're kind of trying to work on the entire basement level at one time so we can bump up some of those occupancy times and move staff less. So, yeah, it's coming along. It's pretty crazy.
Good.
Our goal was to start the next phase down the basement on the 15th, so.
Good. Excellent. Excellent.
Thank you.
Very good. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
Appreciate it a lot.
I'm going to bug out.
And then, gentlemen, I believe the next item that we have is to talk about committee reports and such like that.
What's our dates, Jeff?
I don't have them
We
yet.
start the 23rd of September. And then we're
23rd.
doing 3 weeks because we have 2 planning sessions.
Yep.
And then the board is on the 9th, so it's going all the way through the 13th.
Jeff, will you do me first, please?
I will.
Okay. On the 24th, there's a planning commission at night at 7 o'clock. On the 25th, we got planning session. 28th, I've got Mississippi Headwaters.
That's at 10?
10, yes. October 2nd, I got planning session at 8:30, Board of Adjustments at 7. On the 4th, I've got Council of Aging at 10 o'clock.
At 10?
Yes. And the 5th, we got TSWAC at 8:30. Board meeting on the 9th at 9 o'clock. Department heads at 8:30. Our health board at 3 o'clock in Staples.
What's the health board? Is that just you?
Tri-County.
Morrison,
Yeah.
Todd, Wadena.
Yeah, that's just me.
Just you,
Just
okay.
me, yep.
And that's on what date, Mike?
The 10th.
Okay.
And employees retreat, I've got here on my calendar on the 11th.
What's that?
Is that,
What employee?
I don't know. I've got it on my calendar. That's what it must have came through on some email. But we'll check that one out.
Yep.
Okay, that is it for me.
Okay.
I must go, guys.
Okay, very good. Thank you very kindly. Commissioner Blaine.
On the 27th, I will be at Region 5 at 6 PM. On October 4th, I will be in Owatonna for South Country Health Alliance.
It's at 9.
Pardon me?
Time?
9, I will be, actually, I'm also on the compliance committee now, so I'll be meeting with them, with the compliance committee at 8 o'clock, and then the board meeting at 9. And then I will also be at the Morrison Todd Wadena Community Health meeting on October 10th. And I believe everything else Mike has, so.
Okay. Commissioner Lemire?
Starting on the 24th, right? Or
On the 23rd, but yeah, 24th is fine.
HRA, the 25th, 7:30 a.m. Got it. Did someone say TSWAC or not?
Yep.
Okay.
Mike did, yeah.
And then the 8th, Yellow Ribbon, 5:30.
And where is that?
Cabin Fever. And they got the rest.
My turn? 24th, 1 o'clock, Stand Up For You, and I believe that's at St. Gabe's. And the 26th, I've got Armor, I've got the Executive Committee meeting at 10 o'clock, Central Minnesota Emergency Services Board. Full board meets at 1 o'clock, and that's, both of those meetings are at St. Cloud City Hall. 27th is the State Emergency Communications Board, Armor, that's in Arden Hills, at 12:30. On the 23rd, at 11 o'clock in the morning, is the Central Minnesota Emergency Services Board.
3rd of what?
3rd, I'm sorry, of October. At 11, City of St. Cloud. On the 4th, at 10 o'clock in the morning. We haven't had it for a long time, but I've got scheduled an Armor Legislative Committee phone conference call. That's at my house. And that should just about do it. On the 9th. On the 9th is breakfast with the commissioners before the board meeting. Board meetings on the 9th of October. And I don't know that you two know this. I can't remember. Okay.
Yeah.
Breakfast with the Commissioners is put on with 4-H. So Becky with 4-H will have some donuts and fruits and things like that here at City Hall, the conference room, or in the boardroom, rather. And we'll have 4-H students here. And I believe that is at 8 o'clock in the morning?
She should be sending out communication for that.
That should be coming, yeah. Forthcoming from Becky, so you know. But that's a big deal, because there's little kids, 4-H kids that come to this, and it's a big deal. Sometimes they get to sit in their chairs, and it's just kind of a big deal for them to do that, so.
They do that every year then?
Every year. Actually, it was scheduled for today, I think,
Last year.
originally.
Well, we switched it 'cause
But
of the Water
yeah,
Festival.
it would have happened today.
Actually, it's 4-H week, the week
Well,
that it's.
that's
actually
even
happening,
better.
So they prefer it on.
That's fine.
On the 11th, do you have trails?
On the 11th, I have trails at 6 o'clock.
And then do you have
I didn't give you that either, did I? Yes, at 10 o'clock, that's at Stearns County. Thank you very much. Missed it.
Okay.
Got too many calendars is what I have. All right. I believe I'd look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Second, Mr. Chair.
Discussion? I'm anticipating none. This meeting is adjourned. It's 12:29. Thank you very kindly.